Hey, you. Feeling like you're constantly, I don't know, running on fumes.
Yeah, it's something so many people experience, right?
Totally. And today we're doing a deep dive into, well, why that might be happening. We've looked at a bunch of articles about tiredness, fatigue.
Uh-huh. Trying to get to the bottom of it,
Hmm.
from the simple stuff to the more complex reasons.
Exactly. So our goal today is to unpack what these sources say, why you might be feeling so drained, and maybe what you could potentially do about it.
Because, look, everyone gets tired sometimes after a big workout, a late night. That's normal.
Right. But we're talking about that persistent fatigue, the kind that just hangs around.
That's the key difference, that feeling where even a good night's sleep doesn't seem to fix it. Our sources are pretty clear.
Hmm.
If it's ongoing, something else might be going on.
Okay, so let's start unpacking that. Maybe the most obvious place, sleep, or lack of good sleep.
Yeah, it's fundamental. It comes up again and again in the research.
It's amazing how crucial it is.
It really is. Think of sleep like essential system maintenance for your body.
Maintenance, yeah, I like that.
During sleep, your body's busy regulating hormones, repairing cells,
Mm.
all that background work. It's what restores you.
Which is why they recommend, what, 7 hours minimum for adults? Usually 7 to 9?
That's the general guideline, yeah, for that full restorative cycle to happen.
But it's not just the number of hours, is it?
Yeah.
Quality matters hugely.
Oh, absolutely. That's where you get into things like insomnia.
Right. And the articles mention several triggers: stress, hormonal changes like menopause, even just a bad sleep environment, like too much light or noise.
All those things can disrupt that quality.
Yeah.
And insomnia itself can sometimes be a sign of other things happening physically or mentally.
Mm-hmm.
But the good news is there are ways to tackle it. Lifestyle changes, sometimes supplements, or addressing whatever the root cause is.
So getting sleep sorted seems like job number one.
Mhm.
But okay, what if you are getting those 7, 8 hours and you still feel completely wiped out?
Well, that's where things get interesting. The next big area the sources highlight is nutrition, specifically nutrient deficiencies.
Right, so the fuel you're putting in might be lacking something crucial.
Exactly. It's fascinating how many different vitamins and minerals are directly involved in your energy levels.
Which ones came up most often?
Well, the Healthline article lists quite a few. Iron, for sure. Then a whole bunch of B vitamins, B2, B3, B5, B6, folate, which is B9, and B12.
Wow, a lot of Bs.
Yeah, they're critical for converting food into energy. Plus, vitamin D, vitamin C, and magnesium were also mentioned.
It's like if one part of the assembly line is missing, the whole thing slows down.
That's a great analogy. And that's why if you suspect something's off, it's really important to, talk to a doctor.
Get tested, basically.
Yeah. Blood tests can pinpoint these deficiencies, and often simply correcting that imbalance, getting your levels back to normal, can make a huge difference in how you feel.
Makes total sense. Okay, so sleep, nutrients, what's next? The big one, stress.
Yeah, stress, something we all deal with.
But it's the chronic stress that's the real energy killer, right?
Exactly. A little bit of short-term stress can actually be motivating, give you a push.
Sure, like a deadline.
Right. But that constant grinding long-term stress, that really drains your battery. One source even mentioned something called stress-related exhaustion disorder.
Wow, so it's a recognized condition.
It can be that severe, yeah. And it's not just in your head either.
What do you mean?
Well, the articles suggest chronic stress can actually cause physical changes. Things like changes in the brain, even low-level inflammation throughout the body.
Inflammation from stress.
Yeah, it seems so. And that inflammation itself can contribute massively to feeling fatigued.
That's quite something. So managing stress isn't just about feeling calmer, it's physically important for energy.
Absolutely. Therapy, counseling, these are mentioned as useful tools for developing coping strategies.
Okay, so sleep, nutrients, stress, all big factors. But sometimes the fatigue is a sign of something else, like an underlying medical issue.
And this is where the advice gets really clear across the board. If you have persistent, unexplained fatigue, you really need to see a doctor.
Don't just try to push through it indefinitely.
No. Especially if rest isn't helping and it's affecting your daily life. Rule out the medical stuff first.
And the list of potential conditions mentioned in the sources is, well, it's pretty extensive.
It is. You've got
Yeah.
things like sleep apnea, which we touched on briefly, thyroid problems, hypothyroidism especially, but also more serious conditions like, well, cancer, chronic fatigue syndrome itself, MS, anxiety disorders, kidney disease, depression, diabetes, fibromyalgia.
Wow. The other article added things like liver disease, heart failure, Addison's disease, anemia.
Autoimmune diseases like lupus, even infections. It's a long list.
It really drives home the point that constant exhaustion isn't just normal.
Absolutely not. There's usually a reason, and finding that reason is key.
Okay, let's shift back to things maybe more within our immediate control. Diet. We touched on nutrients, but what about the overall eating pattern?
Huge impact. Both sources really emphasize this. A balanced diet with whole, nutrient-dense foods gives you sustained energy.
Makes sense. Fueling the machine properly.
Right. And if you're not getting enough calories overall or enough protein, your body might start breaking down muscle for energy.
Which naturally makes you feel tired and weak.
Exactly. And it's also about what you do eat, not just what you miss.
You mean like processed foods?
Yeah, diets high in ultra-processed stuff and loads of added sugar, they can really mess with your energy levels.
Quick high, then a big crash.
That, and they can also negatively impact your sleep quality, which, as we know, feeds back into fatigue.
So the advice is pretty consistent. Lots of fruits, veggies, legumes, healthy proteins.
And try to limit the processed junk and sugary drinks. Pretty standard advice, but crucial for energy.
Okay, speaking of drinks.
Ah.
Caffeine. The go-to for so many of us when we feel tired.
Yes. The double-edged sword.
How so?
Well, obviously it gives you that temporary boost, but relying on it too much, especially later in the day.
Wrecks your sleep.
Totally. And then you wake up tired, reach for more caffeine. You see the cycle.
Vicious circle.
Exactly. And the sources make a distinction, too.
Between what, coffee and energy drinks?
Yeah. Moderate coffee or green tea might be okay for some, but those energy drinks, often packed with massive amounts of stimulants and sugar.
Probably best to avoid those generally if you're feeling drained.
That seems to be the consensus. Maybe try cutting back on overall caffeine and see if it helps your sleep and energy.
Or the shot. Okay, another basic one, but maybe easily overlooked. Hydration.
So important. Water is essential for almost everything your body does, including energy production.
So even being a little dehydrated can make you feel sluggish.
Definitely. Healthline points out even mild dehydration can lower energy and make it harder to concentrate. If you're not replacing the fluids, you lose.
Your energy drops. And it's not the same amount for everyone, right?
No, it depends on your weight, activity level, the climate, lots of things.
Best just to sip water through the day.
That's a good strategy. Listen to your body. Thirst is an obvious sign, but fatigue, dizziness, headaches, those can also mean you need more fluids.
Good reminders. Now, wait. How does that factor into energy levels?
Well, maintaining a healthy weight is linked to better overall health, and energy is part of that.
How specifically?
One big connection is sleep apnea. Being overweight or obese significantly increases the risk of obstructive sleep apnea.
Which we know fragments sleep and causes daytime fatigue.
Exactly. But there also seems to be a link between obesity and just generally feeling more sleepy during the day, even separate from diagnosed sleep apnea.
Interesting. So it's kind of interconnected. Healthy weight supports better sleep and energy.
And good sleep and energy might make it easier to manage weight. It works both ways.
Okay, we've hit the big ones. The sources also quickly mentioned a few others.
Yeah, just briefly. Things like drug and alcohol dependence can obviously impact energy.
Shift work too, messing with your body clock.
Big time. Also, being too sedentary, it sounds counterintuitive, but not moving enough can make you more tired.
Whereas regular exercise often boosts energy.
Right. And finally, certain medications can have fatigue as a side effect. Some steroids, blood pressure meds, antidepressants. Worth checking if you've started a new medication and feel drained.
So many potential factors. It really shows how complex fatigue can be.
It really does.
So if someone does go to the doctor feeling persistently tired, what happens then? How do they figure it out?
Well, the process usually starts with a lot of questions. The doctor needs to understand the fatigue.
Like what kind of tired? Sleepy tired or weak tired?
Exactly. Is it sleepiness or muscle weakness? How's your mood? Did it start suddenly or creep up slowly? Does it come and go in cycles? What are you most worried about?
And sleep history would be crucial, I imagine.
Oh, yeah. How long do you sleep? Do you have trouble falling asleep, staying asleep? Do you snore? Has anyone noticed you stop breathing? All vital clues.
Presumably a physical exam.
Yes, and likely some standard tests, blood tests, urine tests.
What are they looking for there?
Things like anemia, checking your blood count, inflammation markers, how your liver and kidneys are doing. Thyroid hormones are a common check. Blood sugar for diabetes. Maybe muscle enzymes, checking for protein in the urine. It helps screen for a lot of those potential medical causes we listed earlier.
Okay. Now, There's one specific condition often mentioned with fatigue, chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME.
Yes, CFS or ME/CFS. It's defined generally as fatigue lasting 6 months or more.
But it's more complex than just being tired for a long time.
Much more. A diagnosis is usually considered if the fatigue lasts over 4 months, significantly impacts life, and there's no other explanation found after investigation.
And it comes with other specific symptoms too, right?
Yes, a whole cluster. Things like sleep problems where you wake up feeling unrefreshed, muscle and joint pain, headaches, tender lymph nodes, sore throat, cognitive issues, that brain fog people talk about, and a really key one, post-exertional malaise. That's getting significantly worse after even minor physical or mental effort.
That sounds debilitating.
It is. Other symptoms can include flu-like feelings, dizziness, nausea, palpitations. The sources note that if those core features, post-exertional malaise, cognitive problems, sleep disturbance, chronic pain, aren't really present, doctors should perhaps reconsider a CFSME diagnosis.
It highlights how tricky diagnosis can be.
Mhm.
So, okay, we've talked about all these causes. What about treatment? What helps?
Well, it fundamentally depends on the cause, doesn't it? If there's a specific medical condition like thyroid issues or sleep apnea, treating that condition is the priority.
Makes sense. But what if no single clear medical cause is found? Or alongside medical treatment?
Then it often comes down to those lifestyle and dietary changes we've been discussing.
Improving sleep hygiene, getting regular gentle exercise, finding that balance.
Yeah, balancing rest and activity, watching caffeine, staying hydrated, eating that balanced diet, maybe helping manage weight if that's a factor.
It all ties together.
It really does. Setting realistic expectations is important too. Using relaxation techniques, meditation, yoga to manage stress.
And avoiding things that can make it worse, like alcohol or smoking.
Exactly. Sometimes counseling or cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, can be really helpful, especially for managing the impact fatigue has on your life.
And for CFSME specifically, there are specialized services.
Yes, often multidisciplinary teams that might offer things like pacing strategies or carefully managed activity programs.
So I guess the main message here is, don't just accept persistent tiredness as inevitable.
Absolutely. It's a signal. There's usually something contributing, whether it's lifestyle, nutrition, stress, or an underlying condition.
And figuring that out is the first step to feeling better.
Definitely. It's about investigating and then taking action based on what you find.
So for you listening right now, maybe take a second to think about everything we've covered. Does any of it ring true for you?
Yeah, is it sleep, food,
Yeah.
stress levels?
Or maybe it makes you think, perhaps I should talk to my doctor about this lingering exhaustion. Because really, being constantly drained isn't the default.
There's likely a reason, and finding it opens the door to potential solutions.
Which leads us to a final thought to leave you with.
Considering this whole web of factors, sleep, diet, stress, hydration, everything, what's maybe one small, manageable change you could experiment with this week? Just one thing that might potentially start shifting your energy in a better direction.